Top 5 Alleged Autistics in History. Number 5. Hans Christian Andersen. Andersen was a Danish author known for his children's fairy tales, such as The Ugly Duckling and The Little Mermaid, which is a heart-wrenching tragedy when compared with the Disney version. As a child, he was gangly and effeminate, and prone to strange tantrums. His journals indicate a strange pattern of pining after unattainable men and women, and a privately enforced celibacy early in life. Upon close examination, his stories seem to be indicative of a deep inner turmoil, often featuring strange or misunderstood characters who are not always fortunate enough to find redemption. Number 4. Lewis Carroll. Born Charles Ludwig Dodgson, Carroll was another children's author who seemed to bear certain autistic trademarks. Most famous for his Alice in Wonderland stories, he had a stammer which likely exacerbated his lack of social skills. Like many people touched by autism, he exhibited great mathematical acumen and was a minor inventor. Although he had some adult friends, Carroll seemed to much enjoy the company of children, to the point where some historians allege that he may have been a pedophile, although it may have just been that with his poor communicative abilities he found it easier to interact with kids. He took many nude pictures of underage girls, although the connotations of such activity were not so severe at the time as they are today. Adding to the mystery, large portions of his journals were removed after his death, leading some to believe they detailed aberrant, possibly criminal behavior. Number 3. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Perhaps the greatest composer the world has ever known, Mozart was an accomplished musician from the age of 4 or 5, and by his teenage years was a renowned genius, exhibiting much of that narrow focus often found in autistic patients. A strange, impulsive little man, he favored bawdy adolescent bathroom humor and even wrote songs with scatological lyrics. Although some historians purport that he may have been autistic, it seems unlikely. Mozart was a social buttery, and seemed to dislike spending time alone. There is, however, some evidence that he had at least a touch of the disorder. Many autistics, who are often sensitive to sound, become extremely responsive to the music of Mozart, so much so that it is used in therapy. Number 2. Ludwig Wittgenstein. A celebrated philosopher, Wittgenstein hailed from one of the richest and most disturbed families in Austria. His father was an intensely unpleasant man, and 3 of Ludwig's brothers committed suicide. Like Lewis Carroll, he had a stutter and awful social skills. His most famous work, Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, is often seen as a classic example of autistic thought processes. He was an irritable man and claimed that he failed to see the humanity in other people. Philosophical pursuits in general seem to attract that autistic intellect. Other sufferers may have included Bertrand Russell and Jean-Paul Sartre. In fact, Sartre's most famous quote, "Hell is other people," seems to sum up the harsh reality of autism in one fell swoop. Number 1. Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. One of the great scions of the High Renaissance movement, Michelangelo is best known as the sculptor of David and the painter of the ceiling at the Sistine Chapel. He was known for his brusque manner and vile personal hygiene, preferring to throw himself wholesale into his work rather than engage in any kind of social niceties. Although he was relatively wealthy, he had little interest in material things. His contemporaries described him as both bizarre and terrible, all eccentricities which might well be easily explained by a diagnosis of autism.